Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott Selections here for Sunday, October 13th. Before we get into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We actually have three plays to recap as we ended up giving out some plays during the week as well that were on some college football games that took place on Saturday. Overall, profitable day for us as we ended up going 2-1 overall for plus 0.95 units. We ended up winning on the Navy -1 play, which I believe was Wednesday, I think. Thursday, we gave out Fresno State. I could be flipping the order of those, but either way, we gave out both those during the week. Fresno State was our lone loser as we had them on the money line about plus 140. Off a bye week, they gave up 43 points. Disappointing. We ended up picking up a loss there, but we ended up winning the play of the day yesterday with the NHL as we ended up taking the Penguins on the money line at plus 105. They scored 7 goals, and they ended up winning by a score of 7-4. Future reference, I'm probably not going to be doing NHL that much as I didn't really think a lot of you were into it based on the responses from the video itself. But either or, we ended up picking up a winner. So we ended up going 2-1 yesterday for some nice profit, and we will hope that that profit will carry over into Sunday. Now, in terms of the NFL, I will give out some leans on some games, but since the games start, or since the 1 o'clock game started in about 20 minutes, I'm not going to bother giving out those. So for that reason, we're actually going to go into baseball today, just so all of you have time to potentially put in the bet. And this is actually available on DraftKings in a prop setting, so I'm going to be giving that out between the Yankees and the Astros. And we actually are going to be looking at Gary Sanchez, the Yankees catcher, under half a hit. So in other words, no hits, which is available at -113 on DraftKings. Now I know that at first glance that line seems pretty low, and the answer is I think it's completely warranted based on the pitching matchup and based on how Sanchez has performed at the plate so far in the postseason. He had a hit yesterday. It was kind of, I don't want to say it was a BS hit, but Greinke tried to quick pitch him for some reason, and then he ended up singling it into center field. Sanchez has looked pretty terrible pretty much in just the postseason itself. In most of his at-bats, he struck out a decent amount. He's been pretty bad, honestly. If you look at his stats, he's batting 167 in the playoffs with 5 strikeouts in 12 at-bats, really just not getting it done at the plate. And now he has to face Verlander off a terrible start. I think Verlander will bring his A game, especially with the Astros in danger of falling down 2-0. But Sanchez in his career has been terrible against Verlander. In his entire career, they faced 12 times, and Gary Sanchez is 1 for 12 with 3 strikeouts and no walks. Walks don't matter because we're going to have the no hits, so you're actually kind of rooting for a walk in a way. But he has a .083 batting average against Verlander. Plus, if you include the bullpen with Rondon and Presley and Joe Smith and some of these other people, and Osuna as well, he doesn't have an average above 250 against any of those guys. And as a whole, Sanchez in his career is 10 for 42 against the Astros for a 238 batting average. However, he is batting 1,000 off of Will Harris. He's batting 667 against Garrett Cole, who's not going to be pitching, and Brad Peacock as well. So if you toss the 3 outliers, he's batting roughly in the hundreds against the Astros bullpen and Verlander combined. And I definitely think that he will struggle once again at the plate. Overall, I know I might get some, as a Yankees fan, I know some people might disagree with me. I think Gary Sanchez is highly overrated. And I think that for somebody who's batting 232 on the season and who's batting 167 in the playoffs, I really just think he's overrated. And I think that besides hitting home runs, he pretty much possesses no value whatsoever. But as a whole, I think Verlander will stuff him. I think Verlander should go about 7 innings, give or take. And I think Sanchez will have to face the bullpen maybe for 1 batter. I mean, for 1 trip through. But I trust Hinch, and I trust his ability to orchestrate the bullpen to create some solid matchups. Sanchez is also extremely slow, so you don't have to worry about any infield singles. Anything that's hit in the infield that's fieldable will pretty much be a guaranteed out as Sanchez runs at about 2 miles an hour. But as a whole, I know -113 sounds a little bit juicy. I think it's juicy for a reason. I think Sanchez is going to look foolish at the plate once again. I think Verlander should strike him out at least once or twice. And I think that even if the Yankees end up winning today, which I'm not saying they will, but I hope they do because I'm a Yankees fan. Overall, I do not expect anything from Sanchez in the series, and I think that Sanchez will continue to play poorly. So for that reason, I will be taking Gary Sanchez and no hits or under half a hit, which is available on DraftKings at -113, and that will be the play of the day on Sunday. Now, in terms of some NFL action, looking at some of the leans here, a lot of money's come in on Houston against Kansas City. Kansas City's down to 3.5. I have to lean to the over, and I have to lean to Kansas City. I know that sounds relatively square, but at the same point, Kansas City, you're getting such a favorable number at 3.5, especially with Tyreek Hill, who's officially been declared active for this game. Houston looked great last week, but I think every offense looks great against Atlanta, so I think it's kind of a waste. I think Kansas City got embarrassed on national television last week. I think they'll come out focused. I think they should win by about a touchdown. I would take Kansas City minus 3.5, and I would also take the over, because I think Kansas City and Houston should score at least 28 points each. I think it'll be a massive shootout. Lean to the over in that one. In terms of the other game with Seattle and Cleveland, I'm going to go through every game on the card. I would lean to the under, and I would lean to the Browns, actually. This line stinks for me. Cleveland is -1, even though they looked awful against the 49ers last week. Seattle ended up winning. Seattle's just been rolling. They're off a long week after beating the Rams on Thursday Night Football, and yet for some reason, Cleveland's still favored. It's a little bit of a question mark for me. I'm going to take Cleveland. I think Cleveland will get the job done. This line just stinks for me. So I'll lean to Cleveland. And moving on, you have Baltimore versus Cincinnati. It's mostly a 10.5, and the total's been bet down from 48 to 46.5, give or take. I have to lean to the under. Cincinnati's defense is terrible, but Cincinnati's offense is even worse. Baltimore's defense hasn't played well the last couple of weeks, but I really don't like the Bengals' offensive line. Not a big Dalton guy. A.J. Green's still injured. Baltimore, I know that they've struggled the last couple of weeks. I think they're going to try to be content with running the ball. And Cincinnati's had some issues stopping the run this season. I think they'll control the time possession. I think this game will go under. I think Baltimore will blow them out, but I would lean to the under. Moving on, Jacksonville versus New Orleans. I'm going to lean to Jacksonville here. This line is a little bit questionable also. Jacksonville's -2.5. New Orleans Kamara is expected to play, but Kamara is not at 100% as he is currently questionable. I wonder how many reps he's going to get, or if they're going to try to limit his action. Something about this line stinks. I'll lean to Jacksonville just because of it, but I'm not really sure. Moving on, you have the Eagles and the Vikings. I like Philly on the money line here. Simply put, Kirk Cousins is against a good team, which means I will not be backing Kirk Cousins. I think Philadelphia's played better lately. Their defense was great last week, but they played the Jets, so that doesn't really count. But Minnesota, yeah, they look good against the Giants. Congratulations. But Kirk Cousins, I know, will probably struggle if Philly takes away the run game, which they've been really good at this season. So for that reason, I think the Eagles should win. I trust Wentz in the fourth quarter. This game will be close. I think Philly will win by a field goal. Lean to the Eagles on that one. Moving on, Washington is a 6-point favorite against the Dolphins. I actually like Washington here. I know that both teams are terrible. Washington switch coaches might provide a temporary spark, but truth is, Case Keenum, in my opinion, is the best quarterback on their current active roster. So I think going back to him is actually going to do wonders for the offense against such a terrible defense like the Dolphins. So for that reason, I'll lean to the Redskins. I think they'll win by a touchdown. Moving on, you have the Rams and the 49ers. I ended up doing a podcast for this game with Believe, which some of you might be familiar with, that I ended up starting there a couple weeks ago. But in terms of the game itself, I have to lean to the over 50 here. Kittle's injured, Gurley's injured, and San Francisco's missing 2 offensive linemen and their fullback. Yet the total's been bet up from 48.5 to 50. Doesn't really make any sense to me. I'm not going to question the line movement. I'm going to take the over, as I think that line also stinks, and I question the line movement. So I'll lean to the over on that one. Moving on, Atlanta versus Arizona. Lean to the over 52.5. Atlanta's defense gave up 50-something to Houston last week. This defense stinks. Arizona's red zone play calling is terrible, but their defense is also bad. And I think this game should get into the high 50s. Lean to the over in that one. Moving on, Dallas versus the Jets. I'll take Dallas -7. I know this line isn't great considering the fact Darnold's back, but I really just don't think the Jets are that good. And Dak Prescott, as we've seen earlier this year, he thrives on feasting on terrible teams, but he's bad against good teams. Jets are terrible. I think Dallas should win this. They do have some offensive line concerns with Lael Collins being out, but I still think Dallas should be able to get the job done, as the Jets have been unable to generate pressure at all so far this season. Moving on, Tennessee versus Denver. Line's also questionable here, with Denver being a -1.5 point favorite. I'm still going to take Tennessee, though. I know Tennessee lost to Buffalo last week. It was really just due to awful field goal kicking, but Mariota won't turn the ball over. Tennessee's defense is pretty good. I know Denver looked good against the Chargers last week. I'm not a big fan of the Chargers. I don't think they're that good, so I'm not really reading much into that win. Tennessee tends to do well when nobody's paying attention to their games, and I don't think anyone cares about this game. I'll lean to Tennessee. I think Mariota will control the time. I think they'll control the time possession. I think they'll control I think they'll win the turnover battle, and I think Derrick Henry should be able to rush for at least one touchdown. So lean to the Titans on that one. And lastly, with the Steelers and the Chargers, I'm actually going to take the Steelers and the under here. I think the Steelers might win this outright. I know that the Steelers will be without Mason Rudolph, and they're going to be using Hodges once again at quarterback, and I know that Pouncey's also injured. They are missing some pieces. I really just don't like the Chargers. I just don't think they're a good team. I've watched them play on numerous occasions. Phillip Rivers looked awful last week against Denver. They're returning home. I mean, does home field really even exist for the Chargers? No. I mean, the opposing fans usually dominate about 75% of the stadium population during their games. So I don't really think home field means anything. I expect a ton of gold, and I expect a ton of just Steeler fans all over the place. I think Steelers will end up having home field, even though the game is in Los Angeles. Do I think the Steelers will win? I think they have a shot. I definitely think with that defense, you could easily win any type of game in any circumstance. Do I think that they will win? Probably not, but I think the Chargers will win by a field goal, give or take. I think there is value on Pittsburgh. Lean to the Steelers on that one. And in terms of baseball, I'm a Yankees fan. I got to lean to the Astros here. Paxton, I feel like Paxton's going to get shelled. I hope I'm wrong, but I expect Verlander to pitch well once again. And as he's done numerous times against the Yankees in the playoffs. So I hope I'm wrong, but I'll lean to the Astros there. But the play of the day will be on Gary Sanchez no hits, which is available at -113 on DraftKings. Other than that, though, that's going to do this installment of Scott Selections here for Sunday, October 13th. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.